How do you get folks who don't always agree? And it comes to mind immediately is, you know, black ministers in the LGBT movement. How do you get those folks to work together toward a common goal?
Well, one of the things is we have to move away from false notions that we have, and as Carter G. Woodson said, miseducation. First of all, the NAACP was not founded just by black people. So historically, someone is very inaccurate to suggest that it is a black organization. It's a civil rights organization, a justice organization that had white people in its beginning. Secondly, you just mentioned the black church and LGBT. That's a notion that people have come up with, that's the division. That's not the division. The division is extremists who attempt to come into the minority community and pit people against each other based on race and whatnot. And they create that narrative because politically that's the voting bloc they're trying to split, and that is the African American community. In fact, we found that when you define the LGBTQ issues as civil rights issues, that you find that people of all different races, particularly African Americans, are clear that equal protection under the law and the 14th Amendment trumps any attempt to codify hate and discrimination into the law. How do you do it, though? Well, first of all, you don't do it on one moment or 1 year. We actually started building the Forward Together moral movement, or the HK Historic Thousands on Jones Street People's Assembly, in 2006, when Democrats were in office.
We used to fight you.
That's right. And so I want to be clear, we're very, very nonpartisan. What we did was I invited groups to come in. When the NAACP in North Carolina is 150 chapters, the largest in the South, second largest in the nation. But there was this kind of disjointedness between all of the advocates. Everybody was doing their own thing. Everybody was advocating for their own issues without recognizing the intersectionality. So in late December 2006, we brought people together and we asked 3 questions. Had environmentalists there. We had people advocating for living wage and against poverty. We had peace activists there. We had pro-education, public education there, health advocates. So what are your dreams? What is it that you're really fighting for? What kind of transformative public policy, if you were able to win it, would be a substantial victory? And we listed those. Then we said, now what entity in this state, what part of government, if you will, is the most, is impeding that? Everybody said the state legislature and the governor had the most power to either impact positively or negatively the things we want. We said then, what legislators within that group are doing that? So the educators went to the board and listed theirs. The environmentalists listed theirs. And I said, now look at the board. It's the same people. Everybody in here just listed the same people, whether it was the civil rights activists, the voting rights activists saw that the same people against expanding voting rights were the same people against expanding LGBT rights. The same people against expanding LGBT rights were the same people blocking expanding fully funding public education. The same people against fully funding public education were against health care for all. And I said, now if they are cynical enough to be together, why aren't we smart enough to come together? And somebody said, well, we don't need another organization. I'm not talking about an organization. I'm talking about a coalition, a fusion coalition. How do we come together around an agenda, not creating another organization, but saying to the power structure, you will no longer divide us. And we will not merely come at you as individual fingers. We will come at you as a fist. We will come in unity. We agreed on a 14-point agenda with 81 action steps. Since then, we've kind of, I'll talk about it later, developed it into 5 areas. And we announced to the people that first thing we were going to do was have a massive people's assembly, like you saw. Not a march, a people's assembly, driven by issues, driven by an agenda, driven by clear public policy demands rooted in our Constitution, rooted in our deepest moral tradition, and rooted in empirical data. Because the worst thing you can do is be loud and wrong. Okay, that's the worst thing you can do. I cannot take activists who don't want to be academics. You have to study. You have to connect both of them. There's no sense in being an academic without being an activist. There's no sense in being an activist without being deeply committed to academia. Because so we did that, and we wrote it up, and we said people come, and we called it in February. Now everybody said we were crazy. They said nobody's gonna come in the dead of winter.
I said that.
Okay. Amen. Lord, confession is good for the soul.
They can do it in April.
But what we said, and what some of us said, and I said, why have a conference or an assembly on the state legislature when it's leaving? If you're going to set the agenda, you have to do it before they get there, and then use that as momentum going in. February. Same month of the NAACP, same month as Frederick Douglass' birth, Abraham Lincoln. 5,000 people showed up for the First People's Assembly for a 3-hour teaching. 5,000 people. We taught the 14-point agenda. Why? We said, did you know there were so many people in poverty in North Carolina? Did you know 25% of African Americans don't have health insurance? Did you know that nearly 40% of African American children live in poverty? We taught it. And then we said, therefore we demand, and we voted on it, was unanimous. And like Martin Luther took his 95 Theses to the Sistine Chapel, we took it and tacked it onto the door of the General Assembly and announced that there was a new fusion coalition rooted in that would insert into the veins of North Carolina's politics a new ethic, not based on Republican or Democrat. Darren, within a year, we had at least 3 significant victories that advocates had been working on alone and could not get them through with Democrats. Number 1, we won pushing through same-day registration and early voting and Sunday voting. The first southern state to do that. President Obama wins in 2008. He loses on election day. He wins through same-day registration, early voting, Sunday voting period.
By like 11,000 votes.
Exactly.
Right?
So if we had not pushed that through, North Carolina would not have had the kind of diverse electorate to do what it did in 2008 and be one of the 3 southern states that voted for President Obama. We increased the money to public education. We unionized Smithfield hog processing plant in a right-to-work state where they said it could never be done. When with blacks and whites and Latinos, we all came together in fusion. Later on, we were able to pass the Racial Justice Act, the first southern state other than Kentucky to pass a Racial Justice Act that basically says if you could prove that race was utilized in the picking of a jury or in your conviction to the death penalty, it could be overturned even if you were guilty to at least, where you would have to at least serve life, but you would not be executed. We were able to push one of our senators, Kay Hagan, to not be on the fence about supporting the Affordable Care Act, but to truly support it. We were able to stop in 2009, 2010, a Koch brother funded attempt to resegregate public schools in Wake County, where they were putting a lot of money in Wake County to resegregate that county and use it as a model to do it across the country. The power of fusion politics. So that's how it began. We'll talk a little bit about where it is now, but that's how it began.